Hello and welcome back to Mark's House and Garden UK. I'm working on the garage conversion today and it's been a couple of weeks since I updated you. And season's greetings, by the way, because we're in between Christmas and New Year. So if you celebrate Christmas, happy Christmas. I wanted to give you a final update of 2023. And it has been 2 weeks since I last spoke about the garage conversion, but time has not stood still. As you can probably see, I've been very busy and quite a lot has happened. Now you may remember from the first video I spoke to you about getting planning permission and also getting building regulations approval from building control. So there's two elements to this conversion and I want everything to be signed off properly just in case at some stage in the future I decide to sell a house. And also I want it to be safe and up to standard. Getting planning permission is one thing, and that's down to the planners to decide. And I put the planning application in myself, and I created the plans and the elevations myself on PowerPoint. And I'm delighted to report that that application has been validated, which means it's an acceptable application, and they will now start working on that. The one thing I missed out, which I had to do before it could be validated, was I didn't put the scale on the elevations, and the scale had to be 1 to 100, which it was, but I'd failed to put that on the drawing. My mistake, so I very quickly added that and sent them off. So the planning application has been validated, which means it's an acceptable application and can now go through the planning process. They've already written to my neighbours to inform them that I've applied for planning permission to change this garage into living accommodation. And they've put a plastic sign, a laminated plastic notice on the gate so that anyone passing by will be made aware too. Now this is so that people can give their opinion. They may want to say that they approve of it, or they may want to object and give reasons. Ultimately, it will be down to the planners to decide based on policy, and the policy is contained in the local plan. The local plan is the local council's plan for what they think they should be doing for planning applications, and the local plan is always informed by the national plan. So anyway, that's a bit of a background. They're supposed to take 8 weeks, but because of delays due to COVID still, and we're now sort of nearly 2 years after lockdown, it might take longer than that. And I'm quite relaxed about that because I'm not really in any rush. So the planning application is being looked at. I think it's got every chance of being given approval, but we'll see, and I will update you on that. I'm getting on with bits of work which I can do to this garage on this project that don't need planning approval. So one of the things you can see around me is insulation, and I'm going to come and talk to you about that in a second. Well, the insulation is one of the big things for building regulations and building control. Now, building regs is a different department at the local council. You have to apply for planning permission and pay for your planning permission, and I've done all that. And if you want to know more, ask a question in the description box below this video. I found it pretty straightforward. You also then have to get building regs approval. So anything that gets planning approval also needs building regs approval. And building regs are the regulations that apply to how you build things. And you've got to get things up to their spec, and that's fine. And one of the big things at the moment is insulation. Now, I took the approach that what I would do is I would apply for building regs, and then I would ask the people at the building control department to come out. And before I did any work, I would ask some questions of them so that I knew that what I was doing was right before I did it. And that's turned out to be a very, very good approach because I don't know much about building regulations. So the lady came out very, very quickly, within 2 days actually of me applying for building regs approval. I was very lucky. I rang them and said, look, my approach I would like is to ask you to come out and tell me what to do before I do it. She said, that's fine, send someone out. And someone came out 2 days later, and I spoke to them about what I wanted to do. The insulation in the ceiling, the insulation in the walls, the insulation on the ground, the lighting, the wiring, the heating, the windows and all those things. And whilst we were talking, the lady was giving me lots of tips and bits of advice, and I said, let me get a notepad and I'll write all these things out. She said, you don't need to do that, Mark. I will follow this up with an email. And sure enough, fantastic response. The next day I got an email with a long list of things I need to do. Now that is my guidebook. I have no objections to being told what to do in advance of doing it, because that means that I will get sign off. Let me give you a couple of examples. These rafters here in the roof, I've got tiles, I've got a piece of membrane, and I've got rafters. I have to have 150 millimeters of insulation, but I also have to have a 5mm air gap above, and that's so that the ventilation can pass over the top. It's got to be cross vented, so that ventilation has to go all the way over. So at the moment I'm just currently putting some battens in place which will hold the insulation away. It can't go and touch that, so that keeps that gap at the back. This is 120mm thick, this insulation. It's that foam board insulation, it's called PIR, and that gives me 120 of the 150 I need. So underneath that, attached, is going to be insulated plasterboard. There's the insulation, there's the plasterboard, and that will be attached underneath. So in order to meet the standard, which is 150mm, I have to go now and buy a load of insulated plasterboard with 30mm of insulation and then plasterboard, and that will be lined. So in here will be toasty warm. There's also going to be aluminium foil tape as well around all these cracks. This will probably be one of the warmest garage lofts in the northwest of England. So I'm well on with it now. I've decided that I'm going to do the upstairs here first and the downstairs last. And there's a reason for that. I've got to get the electrics in, and the electrician is booked in on the 8th and 9th of January to do the first fix. So I'll know where all the wires are going to be then. You've got to think about wires for lighting circuits. You've got to think about wires for plug socket circuits. You've got to think about wires for heating circuits, because I'm going to be electrically heated here. I also have to think about wires for the boiler, for the water. I'm going to have an electric combination boiler. Everything will be electric. Because of that, I've got to also dig another trench to the house, because the wire that comes here at the moment isn't thick enough for all these things I'm going to be installing. The electrician's coming out on the 8th and the 9th to do the first fix. Now, the reason I'm doing upstairs first is because the staircase is not compliant to building regulations. It comes up into the loft at a point where there isn't enough head height. And clearly, if you were coming up a staircase and you banged your head, you could tumble back down. So I've got to design a new staircase in order to make it work. I think it's going to have 2 turns on it. So you go up 2 steps, turn left, go up another, and then almost like a spiral staircase, but not a spiral staircase. And that will bring you out in the centre of this room where you get maximum head height. I've got to do that for building regs approval. And it's also a safety measure. I don't want people coming to stay banging their heads on the ceiling and falling down the stairs. So it makes sense to do this. So that's why I'm going to get all up here finished. Then I'm going to take the old staircase out, get the insulation done downstairs. Then I'll have designed a new staircase that can go in, by which time I think we'll be well on the way to getting planning approval. And at that point, I will then start doing the things that will turn this indefinitely from being a garage into being additional living accommodation. And that will include insulating the floor plate downstairs and putting bifold doors on the front, but I'm not going to do the floor plate or the bifolds until I've got planning approval. Because if I don't get planning approval, and I suppose there's always a slim chance that you don't, even though there's very good precedence around here, and I do meet all the requirements of the local plan. If I don't get planning approval, at least I can say, well, this is just a very warm garage with good electrics. And that would be a shame, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I don't think we're going to come to that, because I think, given that there's a garage next door that's identical to this that was given approval only 12 months ago, I think we're going to get approval. These 2 gable walls at the end here have also got to be insulated, but not quite as much as this roof. There's different requirements for the roof, the walls, and the floor, the base plate downstairs. The gable walls have got double skin, so I can have less of this on there. And this, you cut it to size, and it's got to be very, very snug. And it basically goes in between the rafters, like that. And that makes it a lovely toasty. Look at the dust. You're supposed to have a mask on when you're working with this, but I'm talking to the camera. So anyway, you can see the point. I'll call it a day there on this video. I just wanted to give you an update. Lots of plans for the garden for 2024. I've not forgotten the garden. But whilst it's cold, I'm looking up just in case that falls on my head, because it's quite, believe it or not, even though it's light foam, it's quite heavy. I'll step back a little bit, I think. Yeah, lots of plans for the garden for next year, but this is my main project. I'll give you a bit more detail. I'll do a single video on how to insulate a roof, and then I'll do a video on how to insulate the walls downstairs. I'll do a separate video on how to insulate the floor. And lots of other videos, for example, fitting bifold doors, making an internal stud wall, and this will become almost like a series of videos which will be like a guidebook to converting a garage. Hope you found that interesting. I'm standing at an angle like this because I'm not entirely sure what the camera's looking at, and I think I'm in shot here. I'm not sure if I am if I stand up. Anyway, we're approaching New Year. It's New Year's Eve, I think, in 2 days. Well, the 28th, yeah. If I don't speak to you before, thank you for watching all my videos in 2023. Thank you for subscribing, liking and commenting. I know I don't always answer the comments because I get that many nowadays that I don't have time. I'm sorry about that, but I do appreciate your comments. I do read everyone. And I will see you in 2024 for some more house and garden adventures. Hopefully by June, this will be completely fitted out. This upstairs will be my office and where I'll keep my collection of houseplants, and downstairs will be a luxury bedroom suite, and I'll share that journey with you. That's it for now. Happy New Year. I'll see you in 2024. Bye for now.